Hey guys, Chris here with theGoodOldGamer. So it's been a long time since the $200 CPU has really swept the market. But now it looks like AMD with their new Ryzen 3000 series, especially the Ryzen 5, 3600, and 3600X, look to be replacing the crown of the last truly amazing $200 CPU, which was the i5 2500K. Many of you out there probably had one of those. Some of you probably still do. And that's been a CPU workhorse since 2011. It's really crazy to think about it, but that CPU has lasted nearly a decade and is still technically usable here today for mainstream gaming. Now, if you need high refresh gaming, not really the best way to go. But if you're a 60 FPS or slightly higher gamer, should do just fine, especially with something like FreeSync, which with those 1% and 0.1% lows, really not that big of a deal. And we've come into some new information that indicates that the 3600 might be on the same level as the i7 8700K. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today, and what that means for the market, especially those gamers out there that look for the best bang for the buck performance. All right, so over here on WCCF Tech, they actually got some leaked benchmarks for the Ryzen 3600. And this was actually in the Geekbench benchmark. And they went ahead and compared it to other CPUs, of course. Starting things off, for comparison, the Ryzen 7 1800X averages 4,400 points in single thread and 2,400 points in multi-thread. And if you come back up here, we have 5,390 on the single thread and 2,631 on the multi-thread performance. So you can see that it's significantly faster on single thread and beating it by a little bit even in multi-thread. The 8700K comes in at 5,400 points and 25,000 points. Going back up, this is just under 5,400, so that's pretty much margin of error. And 25,000 points is actually a good bit behind the 3600. In comparison to the 2600 at 4,700 points on single thread and 23,000 on the multi-thread. So significantly faster on multi-thread and single thread performance. So this is looking really, really good. Now this is only one benchmark and we're not too far away from getting more information, but if these numbers are true, which they should be, this lines up very closely with what Lisa Su was saying, that on single thread it should be greater than or equal to their competition, and then in multi-thread they should be superior, which is exactly what we're seeing. Basically equal on single thread and better on multi-thread performance. Taking a look at the list of CPUs, this is really, really great news because this is a $199 CPU. And this is really, really great news at only $199. The 8700K launched less than 2 years ago at a price point around the $400 mark. If my memory serves me right, it was $379 or $389, so just below $400. So less than 2 years later, you're getting essentially the same performance at half the price, or thereabout. And let's be realistic, 8700K performance and a $199 price point means that this is going to be the CPU for the vast majority of mainstream and even enthusiasts that just don't want to spend a lot of money. They want to get the maximum gaming performance for the least possible price. Now, the 3700X doesn't seem like a good value right here. It's $50 more and it's only 200 megahertz faster. That doesn't seem too good, but at the same time, we don't know what the XFR frequencies are, and we don't know if this will turbo up more often. That'd be my guess. At a 30-watt TDP higher, more than likely it'll sustain much higher clocks that are slightly outside the efficiency curve, whereas the 3600 will stay within Ryzen's maximum efficiency curve. We really won't know what the difference in performance between these two are until there's actual benchmarks, but right now it doesn't seem like it's going to be that much, and most people are going to probably be interested in saving that $50. As for gaming, there's really not going to be much of a reason to go any higher than that. Now, taking a look back at the i5 2500K, it's actually eerily familiar. At $216, this 4-core, 4-thread CPU from 2011 is still usable today. I mean, it's not the best case scenario and it's not the smoothest experience, but had you bought one back then, you can still play modern games on this CPU just fine today. And that's really crazy when you think about it. Now, this one came in at 95 watts TDP, and of course, you could overclock it to the moon. And at the time, it made the 2600K look like a poor value for $100 more, because back then, you simply didn't need those extra threads. And unfortunately, nowadays, that can leave you vulnerable to security issues. but that's a whole nother issue. Regardless, this was the CPU to get for a very, very long time until the Ryzen CPUs hit. And realistically, moving up to something like a Ryzen 1600 or 2600 would probably have been a likely upgrade choice for anybody who bought one of these back in the day. However, if you're still holding on, it looks like the 3600 is going to be the best upgrade option for you. And the reason why I can say that this CPU is going to last for a long time, a lot of people are probably going to be saying, well, it's not 8-core 16-thread. That's what the new consoles are going to have. We know that the PS4's got a Zen 2 chip, 8-core 16-thread. This is true, and games are going to become more multi-threaded, but a higher clocked 6-core 12-thread CPU should have no issues comparing to this CPU and probably even beating it. Sony is likely going to use something along the lines of the 3700U, something with really low TDP and low clock speeds. So if we take a look at the Ryzen 7 3700U, we can see that it's 4-core, 8-thread. We know that that's going to be doubling, but the biggest thing that's going to change is probably the clock speeds. This is a Zen Plus chip, and we notice that Zen 2 is running approximately 200 megahertz faster overall. So likely the PS5 chip will be somewheres around 2.5 gigahertz base, and then of course the boost clock can be tweaked and configured to many different numbers, likely to a maximum of 4.2, but it'll run much slower than that with all cores being maxed out, closer to the 2.5 or possibly around the 3.2 gigahertz, which has been rumored for a long time. These CPUs right here are configurable, which means the 15-watt TDP that they list, this is lower on the lower end of their spectrum. If you want to get that maximum performance, you'd be closer to the 35-watt. And for me, I would assume Sony would probably want to configure their CPU portion somewhere around 25 watts to 35 watts TDP. This way they can get more performance, and it's not really pushing out that much heat and drawing that much power, as obviously they want to save as much power and thermal solution for their GPUs as possible, because that's the moneymaker for them. I've said this before and I'll say it again, the $200 price point-ish, give or take a little bit, is typically the best bang for the buck spot for gamers. If gaming is primarily the most demanding thing that you do on your PC, $200, $250-ish, somewhere in that range is usually where you want to land. Reason being is if you're spending more for something like an 8-core 16-thread or a 12-core 24-thread CPU, you're not going to get your return on your investment. You're basically just going to have untapped resources, which is great, I guess, but the 6-core 12-thread CPU should last you through the entire next generation of consoles, much like the i5 2500K has for many, many users out there. That lasted the end of the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation, and pretty much propelled people through this generation if they were okay with certain quality tweaks. If they weren't, they probably upgraded. And this goes beyond the i5 2500K. If you have something like an i5 4670, Haswell CPU, or an Ivy Bridge CPU 3570, you probably also want to look into the 3600. To me, it makes sense as a massive upgrade, because that'd be like going from those CPUs up to an 8700 or an 8700K. And that's huge. You're getting 2 more cores, but you're also getting, 8 more threads of performance. And you don't have security issues, so there's an added bonus. So to me, this looks like a great CPU at a great price for gamers. So this means that you're going to be able to put more money into your GPU, which those prices seem to be going up, and I've been talking about that in the past couple of videos. That's a little unfortunate. Typically for me, $200 on the CPU and $400 on the GPU usually got you the best price to performance out there at any given time. Things are starting to skew a little bit more on the GPU side. Hopefully that comes back down to earth a little bit. We'll have to wait and see on that front. But anyway, it's good to see at least 50% of that equation has become far more reasonable. You can pick yourself up a B450 motherboard for less than $100, and that's going to work just fine with such a CPU. And then if you're an overclocking person and you want to tweak and do all that kind of stuff, well, you can do that as well with a sub $100 motherboard. You're just not going to be able to push as far as like a $200, X570 motherboard, but still, you'll get the best value for your money at that point. Well, alrighty guys, this is really encouraging news to see the performance level of these new Zen 2 CPUs. Now, once again, this isn't like confirmed or anything, so still take it with a grain of salt, but this does line up with what Lisa Su said, so it's likely true. But I'd still wait for the reviews for these CPUs before making a purchase. However, we're not too far away from that, just a little bit over a month. And yeah, then we'll know for sure. But it looks like this is going to be the winner. And I honestly think for the average mainstream gamer, this is going to be the CPU most people recommend. You could always go up to the 3600X. If you don't feel like tweaking and overclocking, you also get a little bit better cooler. And that might make more sense for you. But for the $50, it looks like you're better off just saving your cash, as this CPU at stock should perform well enough that you don't need to worry about it unless you're shooting for 240 hertz gaming or something crazy like that. But for the vast majority of people out there, this should do just fine. Well, alrighty guys, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below about this. Are you as excited as I am to see the $200 price point really just take over the gaming market, being the most bang for the buck again, like it was back in the day? I'm really glad to see that prices are technically coming down on this. That'll make gaming a little bit cheaper to get into for new people. And if you just don't want to invest as much, well, you don't have to. So that's a good thing. So I'm really glad to see that, but I want to hear your thoughts on this. And then if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please share with friends. That really does help me out. And if you want to help support the channel, please consider becoming a patron over here on Patreon. Links will be in the description below. For as little as $1 a month, you get greater access to me via Discord. You can message me anytime. Be great to talk to you guys one-on-one, as well as other great benefits in here for you guys to experience the channel and interact with me more. And I really do appreciate everybody who has supported the channel thus far. And that's all I have for today, and I will catch you guys in the next video.